Tanner, how are you today, man?
Man, I'm just happy to be here. I'm glad we finally got to
Yeah.
got to connect. I get to meet a lot of people through the internet, and so it's always nice to have like a sit-down conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're having a great day
Yeah.
so far.
We're having an interesting day over here, but we'll make it through.
Yeah, well, no, it's great. What a time to be alive, you know. So, for anyone who is first listening to this, this is conversation. So Tanner and I are going to have a conversation as if we are at coffee. I think right now more than ever, conversations are needed. And is that coffee, by the way?
For sure, man. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I got a monster, so I'm
You'll be good to go.
I'm over caffeinated
Yeah.
right now. Yeah, I'll be talking your ears off in about 3 minutes when this kicks in. But tell the viewers a little bit about who you are. Like, what's your story? Kind of give us an introduction of who Tanner Olson is.
So it's loaded. Yeah, my name is Tanner Olson. I always say that I'm an author, poet, speaker. I have a podcast. I do a whole bunch of things, but really, I just like to write. I want to spread hope with the things that I've written. I want people to know that that they're okay, you know, and that life is hard and it's difficult,
Yeah.
but like, I don't know, God is good. Life is challenging, but we have each other. And so a lot of the things that I write are these little reminders and snippets of hope that are anchored in the truth that we are loved by God, known by God, and sent by God. And that's really what I want to communicate through my work, through my writing, through my words. And so I've been doing this for about 10 years now, and have 4 books out and get to travel around the country, sharing poetry, telling stories, making jokes, having conversations, speaking, and doing all those fun things. So life is certainly not what I thought it was going to be. But like I said, man, like I'm just happy to be here, you know?
Yeah, it's incredible. Well, there's probably so much to unpack in what you just said. Like you said, it's kind of a lot, but it's good. So tell me a little bit. Sorry, I got to pause it. My light literally just shut off. Love that.
That's okay.
Oh
no.
Hold on. I have 2 laptops. I signed me out because I always keep 2 laptops because you only have so many USB plugins, you know?
Yeah.
It's life. That's why I got a Sinatra tattoo, because that's life. You know?
I like that. That's fun.
We should be good. All right. That was a good segment. Anyways, yeah, Tanner, tell me a little bit about how you got into like the writing sphere. Obviously, it's probably way before there was ever a platform, before there was ever any traveling, before really, I'm sure it just started with an idea. And where was the root, or where did that start?
I write poetry. I have a lot of feelings, and I had a lot of feelings when I was in middle school. And so I can remember listening to like back to my favorite bands, like pop punk bands like New Found Glory and Yellow Card and Blink-182, and they would write these songs, and I would just connect with their lyrics. And I wish that I could be in a band, but I can't sing or play music. But there was this love of trying to communicate something that I knew, that I felt, and wanting others to come alongside it and wrap their hands around it too, because I knew that they would feel it also. And so I've been writing since middle school, but I didn't start putting stuff out until about 2013. So close to about 10 years ago. And the hope, the idea was to be a writer. Like I just wanted to put words down on a piece of paper that others could be seen and that they could connect with. And so, yeah, it all began in 2013. I started writing spoken word poems, and they were not very good. They were long and hard to understand, and I wanted to say them loudly, but then I realized that really wasn't me. And so it took me a while for me to not only like find my voice, but to find my way as a creator, and what are the things that I like to create, and why do I like to create them. And it took a little while for me to get out of the way and to let the mission, the idea, to kind of take hold and to move me forward. And so it's been a wild last 10 years, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, stops, pauses, places where I wish I could rewind, and some places where I wish I could fast forward. But it's all taught me something.
Yeah. Well, it's so incredible. And I think I want to dive into that kind of creative process a little bit. Before that, I always like to ask this question because it's always fascinating to me. But do you have like a daily rhythm or a schedule? Because you're a writer, obviously you're a podcaster, you're creating social media content. Like, what is that? Obviously, like, you're married. Like, what kind of does that process look like?
I think every day looks different, and then every season looks different as well. On my best days, I'm waking up at 5:45 or 6, and I'm writing before my wife and dog get up, before we go on a walk. And then I'll usually come back into the office around 8 or so, and I'll do a little bit of reading, a little bit of praying, and then I'll just pick up where I left off from the day before. And so it could be working on a book, it could be working on a poem, it could be working on something for like a client, or doing all the behind the scenes work to make sure that I'm able to be in this state at this time, doing this thing. And so it might be writing messages for a middle school retreat, or it might be working on a poem for a conference in 2 months. It just kind of depends. And so there's always a lot of different plates that are spinning. And that's good because I'm hungry. So it's good to have a lot of plates.
I love that.
Yeah.
There's so many like little lines that football players say that I'm like, that was really good. I don't think you knew how good it was, but that's hilarious. Like I said, creative process. So you said you started writing in middle school. To be honest, I'm sure that there's some middle schoolers going to watch this who maybe have a concept or an idea of like, hey, where do I start? Like, all right, I see that your platform, you're traveling, you're writing books. I want to get there someday. Number one, what does there look like to you? Because we always have this concept of arrival, which again I don't think ever happens. But to a younger audience or a younger viewer, where does that start? Like, where should they start?
Yeah. I think you just have to start. And it's the advice I give to young writers is, I don't think it's this mind-blowing advice. It is very simple, and it's not what you want to hear. The advice is just begin. Just start. So if you want to be a writer, start writing, start reading, start putting words down on paper. But you also have to understand it's probably not going to be that good when you begin. And that's okay. Like, because if you're willing to be bad at something, you might just become good at it. And so when you sit down and you put the time into it and you take those small, faithful steps forward, because that's what it's going to be. It's small, faithful steps forward. You're going to get somewhere. You're going to go somewhere. You're going to create a distance that from where you were to where you are. And along the way, it's important to slow down and to celebrate, to thank God for it all, and to write through it. So that's the advice that I would give. And inside all of that is you just have to give it time. And you have to give it time, and you cannot compare where you're at to where somebody else is, because your trajectory is going to be different from that person's and that person's.
Yeah. Besides movies, or was there a person in your life who really pushed you from like, hey, Tanner, I think you're really gifted in this?
Yeah. So while I was working in Austin, Texas, I was working at a church, and the pastor of the church, his name's Barrett Graving. He sat me down one day and he was like, you know, you can do this, right? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you know, you can be a writer. Like, you're doing it. Like, if you want, like, you can do this full time. Like, there's a way to make that happen. And he did a lot of, and I think he was being a pastor. He was helping me see what I really couldn't see, and he was reminding me of the faith that was inside of me, and that I was able to actually take a next step. And I was just comfortable doing my own thing, writing poems here and there, and selling stuff on my website. But he's like, no, man, like there's a place for you as a writer in the world. And then he reminded me about how, for centuries the church has used poetry, and how poets have, inspired and encouraged the faith of others. And that's really what I want to do. And I needed someone to see that in me before I could see that in myself.
Yeah. What, for even you now though, are a couple things that you look in others to see that? So as you were taught to look in, like he looked inside of you and saw things, how do you do that?
I think so. One of the beautiful things about the internet and the age that we live in right now is anybody can send me a message about anything. And I'm one of those people who, like, if you send me a message, like, I want to respond to it. Like, I want to give you a good answer, a solid answer back. Like, I want you to know that, like, you're seen, and that you're cared for, and that you matter as well. And so I'll get a lot of instant messages about, like, hey, I want to be a writer. How did you start? How did you begin? And so I take the time to respond to that, because I think that there's something in that of, like, helping somebody else see, like, hey, I started in a place that was full of questions and anxiety and worry. But it's like I said earlier, man, it's like those small little steps forward, and somebody else who's taken those steps and says, hey, like, they're going to be hard, but you're capable of doing it. So just take the next one again tomorrow. And so I don't want people. Yeah, I just don't want people to think that just because it's something that somebody else has done, that they can't do it. Like, everyone has something to say, and if you want to be a writer, like, I mean, first of all, good luck, but like, you can do it. You just have to start.
Yeah. For anyone who, we talked a little bit about the introductory of, like, writing a book or kind of taking a step, even so much bigger than that, like whatever somebody wants, maybe start a business, maybe start a podcast, whatever. For the writing specific person, do you have, like, a writing schedule? Like you said, you usually in the mornings, because it's a lot. Like, writing 100,000 words obviously takes quite a long time. Is there, like, a process to that you use, or are you more organic?
I think a little bit of both. So, like, currently I'm working on writing a memoir, and that's a lot more than putting together a collection of poetry. And so I do my best to kind of break it down. And so it's like, I'm not looking at the whole entire marathon. I'm looking at every single mile, and then I'm breaking that mile down to, okay, this is this quarter mile, this is this quarter. And so I'm taking the big project and making it as small as I can, and then focusing in on that. And then as you write and as you kind of tick something off, like, pretty soon you're going to be pretty far, and you'll eventually cross the finish line, or that's the hope. All analogies kind of break down at some point, but the idea of, like, if that's the thing that you want to do, like, break it down, take it day by day, and understand, like, it's going to take a while to get to the end, but it's worth it, because it can be overwhelming to say, all right, I'm going to do this. It's like, okay, let's slow down, take it step by step at a time, and just, like, let's just begin with chapter 1, or let's begin. You want to write a book of poetry? Let's write 1 poem a day, and then in 100 days you'll have 100 poems, and that's something to be proud of.
That's a lot. Yeah. I love, and even you said earlier that you were in ministry. Was there, like, did you grow up in the church? Did you have, like, a moment where you started going to church, maybe like youth group or whatever? Was there a moment for you like that?
Yeah, I grew up in the church. That was basically where we lived, it seemed like. I mean, we go on, Sunday in the morning, Wednesday nights, and then Sunday evening it was like youth group, and so we were always there. And it was one of those. It was a place for me where it really helped me see all these different ways to express your faith, to be artistic. From the band, from musicians to the choir, to the way that the pastor preached, to our youth leader taught us. Like, there was always something to be learned and inspired by through the ways that they lived out their faith and the creativity that they had. But yeah, man, I grew up going to church, and I still go to church. Yeah.
I forgot what I was listening to, but they were talking about how we do not celebrate that enough, and it should be over celebrated. The people who grew up in the church and stayed in the church right now. Because you'll never see that on, like, a Sunday morning testimony video, but it should be, because it's so beautiful. And I think like, you and I are husbands, and we're praying that our kids someday will be in the faith and love the local church. And I just absolutely love that. It's incredible. So for you, like, you talked about, you go to church. What is the importance of being in the local church to you? Because obviously you're a writer, you're traveling, there's a lot of stuff going on, but obviously foundational pieces. What are the importance of that for you?
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic was a wild thing, because we weren't, obviously weren't able to meet together, to be together, to gather together. And that's what it's about, right? It's the meeting together. It's the breaking of the bread together. It's the confessing of our sins and hearing the power of the gospel spoken over you, the reminder that your sins are forgiven, that you are free, that you can walk in grace and live in love, and that you are you are loved, that the tomb is open, and that God is with you and he is for you. And hearing that week after week and being filled with the gifts of God and to be surrounded by the people of God. I mean, it's not just a thing that you do. It's not just another thing. It's like we're going to be with our people to worship our God. And it's a beautiful thing. And for so long in my life, I thought, I have to go to church. Sunday, I got to go to church again.
Right.
This one. I'm 12. I don't want to do anything. I want to eat biscuits and just sit on the couch and watch MTV. Like, that's
Right.
it, right? But like, no, like this. Now I see it as, well, this is a place where we get to not only be filled up, but to be with other people. And we get to worship. And you just, I don't know. Why would I not want to be part of that week after week?
Right. Yeah. I mean, literally, though, it's the best thing on the planet is being with people who think like you, have the same vision as you of where you want to go. It's imperative. And I always love that, because people who create a lot of social media content, like both of us, I always go back like, hey, yes, that's great, but you need to have your foundations ready to roll, because when then they're not there, it'll fall, it'll break. So Tanner, give us one last piece of advice. There's such a wide audience here. You got a 16-year-old who follows me because I have cool shoes, and you got like an 85-year-old guy who listens to me because I'm a rebel. So give us.
I would say this, and I've recently started saying this a little bit more on the internet, but life is not a race, and you are not behind. Mm-hmm. And I think I get caught up, others get caught up in comparing themselves to other people, and we don't need to do that. You are where you are, and where you are is not a bad place to be. And so going back to what you said, like, let's remember to be faithful. Let's remember to just remember the gifts that God has given us, and to live in those, to walk those out, to be right where we are, and to see that where we are is really not a bad place for us to be. So life is not a race, and you are not behind. And write that down. Say it to yourself in the mirror. Life is not a race, and you are not behind.
Yeah, so good. For all of you guys who are watching and listening, or just watching, my headlight keeps coming out. That's all right.
That's part of.
Thank you so much.
It's part of the conversation. Yeah.
It's part of life, bro. Your lights fall out sometimes. You got to just run the race.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being on, man. Seriously, I hope that.
Of course.
Just thank you for your time. I super value you, your wisdom. You have an incredible voice, by the way. What a podcast voice. Wow.
Well, thank you so very much. I've been working on it.
No, that's hilarious. Yeah. Well, for anyone listening, I hope that this added value to you. Hope that you had a notebook out and took some notes from Tanner. So much beautiful insight of just a creative mind, creative rhythms, and a little insight to somebody who's walked the walk. They're not just talking about things, but they've lived life, and they've lived it in incredible ways. So thanks again, man.